Hey there, folks. I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse. And yeah, this week pretty much sucks. It's Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. So alright, believe it or not, I don't like being generally perceived as negative. It kind of happens naturally because I'm a pretty harsh critic and I don't always force the smile, but I try to avoid putting my valuable time and effort into actually hating things. It's really counterproductive. So when I come here and say that this week on the Hot 100 looks to be pretty damn bad, and in a year that thus far looks to be pretty damn bad, you know we're dealing with some rough territory. Strap in. And we gotta start off with our top 10, and our new number one that I might have predicted, but surely wish I didn't, Heat Waves by Glass Animals at number 1. I mean, I can respect the extended chart run and how it dominates radio, solid streaming, but let's be real. In the majority of climates, this is not a strong number 1, and I have precisely zero expectations it's gonna hold up. Hell, the only reason it got here is because We Don't Talk About Bruno by the Encanto cast, despite having strong streaming, never got radio going. It slid down to number 2. Frankly, I'm still rooting for ABCDEFU by Gail at number 3. She's got strength across the board, really just a margins game until she can break through properly. Now, thankfully, she held back Super Gremlin by Kodak Black at number 4, riding a short boost thanks to his album release that couldn't quite drive his radio much higher to support the streaming. And while it held up over Stay by Kid Laroi and Justin Bieber at number 5, mostly because that song's streaming had stalled out and it's slowly collapsing on the radio, I chalk up the success of both of those songs really to Easy on Me by Adele starting to crash hard off the radio losses down to number 6. Unfortunately, the last 4 in the top 10 didn't move at all. Ghosts by Justin Bieber at number 7 can't make up traction in the radio, nor can Shivers by Ed Sheeran at number 8, even if it has slightly better streaming. Also true for Bad Habits by Ed Sheeran at number 9, even as the radio's second win falls short, and Cold Heart PNAU Remix by Elton John and Dua Lipa stalled out at number 10, as its radio is also in freefall. Speaking of which, our losers and dropouts, and there's really not many here. In the latter category, we got Who Wants Smoke by Nardo Wick featuring G Herbo, Lil Durk, and 21 Savage falling short of the year-end list. But where things might get interesting is if All Too Well, Taylor's version by Taylor Swift, managed to scrape by enough points to get through. My math has it falling short, but it's going to be very close. Then there's our losers, the majority of which come from the new arrivals losing traction, like Nail Tech by Jack Harlow at 41, or Banking on Me by Gunna at 74, or just the continued losers from last week, like Don't Play That by the late King Von and 21 Savage at 97, Bussin' by Nicki Minaj and Lil Baby at 94, Worst Day by Future at 84, and The Joker and the Queen by Ed Sheeran featuring Taylor Swift at 75. I'll repeat myself from last week, not really complaining. Hell, what surprised me more are Still Dre by Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg clinging on to 63, or how Oh My God by Adele is just continuing to tank at 62. The last few break down to a bunch of Encanto songs finally making their exit, All of You from the Cast at 89, and Waiting on a Miracle by Stephanie Beatrice at 71, and 2 3-person collabs sliding down, with City of Gods by Fivio Foreign, Kanye West, and Alicia Keys falling to 70 because no unauditable stem player sales or plays are going to count for this. Good. And Better Days by Naked, Mae Muller, and Polo G. It's on its way out at 60 after clinching its year-end spot, pretty likely. Side note, I have yet to remotely encounter anyone who cares about this song. Kind of interesting. But what about our gains and our returns here? Well, what of them? The only one in the latter category is Slow Down Summer by Thomas Rhett, which is in precisely the wrong season to make any sense right now, but it's still back at 88. And it's not like I'm seeing much in the way of logic behind a lot of our gains here either. In country, we're seeing pickups for Beers on Me by Dierks Bentley, Brayland, and Hardy at 42, and Doing This by Luke Combs at 37. That's at least good. Odd boost for The Motto by Tiesto and Ava Max at 73 thanks to radio traction and sales, and Boyfriend by Dove Cameron at 55, which is for some reason becoming a streaming thing. And then Numb Little Bug by M. Bayhold is steadily becoming a 2000s-esque retro sleeper hit at 54, especially with its streaming and sales traction. As soon as the radio gets on board with this proper, I think this is going to be bigger than anyone will predict. But the big boost came off the debut for Aha by Lil Durk, up to 19, insane thanks to massive streaming and nothing else. I already went in with a lot of detail surrounding my issues with all of this last week, and unfortunately we got the response to handle now. Joy. But you know what, before we get to that directly, we've got a reasonably short list of new arrivals. So let's instead start off with number 100, Rocking a Cardigan in Atlanta by Lil Shorty Scott. Oh look, another song running off of TikTok virality from a near-complete no-name. Surely this will be distinctive, or not another undercooked fragment. Oh wait, that's exactly what this is. But what's probably most distinctive about this probably comes down to this guy's voice. Somewhere between 645 AR, Playboy Cardi, and maybe Mickey Mouse. It's immediately very grating and basically hangs unsupported with a cheap sounding trap beat and a piano loop. It's clearly going for the cartoonish vibe, but it also reminds me more than it should of that Zach Fox project from last year, where the one joke was the exaggerated cliche of rappers being extra in silly ways. And here, there's somehow even less to it, with this guy calling himself Mr. Tardy Man and Mr. Frat Boy, alongside of bland flexing and stealing your girl. Clearly, this one-note meme is the peak of humor, and I just don't get it, but it's also not thoroughly played by one of the most annoying voices I've heard in recent memory. It's not funny, it's not good. Next, number 95, To the Moon by JNR Choi and Sam Tompkins. Pull up the single turn Okay, let's unpack this. JNR Choi is a UK drill rapper who's mostly unremarkable in delivery and content. Sam Tompkins hopped on a hook/interpretation of Bruno Mars' Talking to the Moon, which has quietly picked up a pretty sizable following on its own, mostly as a pretty great early Bruno Mars song, and then this became at least somewhat popular because the phrase "to the moon" is tied into cryptocurrency trading in the NFT space. And I guess it shouldn't be surprising that none of it remotely works, but what's kind of surprising is how it's not even interesting in its failings. JNR Choi reminds me of many of the interchangeable UK drill acts with auto-tune attempting to cover up his poor Pop Smoke impression, and he says nothing here remotely interesting. And Sam Tompkins can't remotely match Bruno Mars's presence or pipes before his melodic presence is just crushed in behind all the weird muted clatter of the percussion. Honestly, it just kind of sounds cheap, with the drill elements taking away firepower instead of adding it. It's the cheap drill remix of itself. Now, my bet is that it only got traction thanks to the running, unbacked, hyper-capitalistic nightmare of a grift cult of cryptocurrency. Also kind of perfect that a song this thuddingly uninteresting is that anthem. Number 90, I Wish by Kodak Black.
For so long I've been going on drills, drinking that lean pour straight out the sill. I don't care wherever we sell. Pussy boy better hide in the crib. I don't care if he out with his kid, cause he ain't supposed to be outside, period.
Honestly, was expecting that there was going to be a lot more from Kodak Black to chart beyond the 2 songs he debuted this week. Granted, off the top of my head, I can't recall a Kodak Black album bomb that really tore through the charts. Hopefully that means longer term Super Gremlin's a fluke, but okay, fine. For this song, alright, call it a case of low expectations. I don't really think this is that bad. The production based off of a Ray J sample, it's not that interesting behind the tumble of acoustics, behind that chalky trap percussion, and it doesn't build to a proper hook. And I still think Kodak Black's a pretty mediocre rapper in terms of structuring his flows and delivery. But at least on the surface, I can kind of grasp the sentiment of wanting to get away from the streets for good, get off the drugs, maybe go straight so he can take his son to Disneyland. There's more tangible remorse, a desire to do better. But it kind of flies in the face of that this is Kodak Black, and it's also a lot of the bars stacked up with drug abuse, old grudges, and threats. It would almost be tragic if, again, it wasn't Kodak Black. Whatever, I don't think there's enough here to be worth remembering, so let's move on to number 81, Usain Boo by Kodak Black.
But the feds, I bought the feds, you bought the feds, let link up. I'ma see what my diamonds link up. Gotta despise the free lunch, I want nothing free.
Is there anyone else here who thinks this sounds really messy? The painfully cheap sounding trap groove with no body or solid blending, the rattling acoustics tumbling off the rhythm against the chipmunk vocal, and where Kodak slurs through his usual flow where he barely fits within any pocket here without any hook. But then you realize this is his song where he's trying to flex and attract women with all of his triumphant posturing, which gets a little bit more questionable when you realize he's accusing Megan Thee Stallion of ripping him off and then saying how he bucks the feds. Given that last year he pleaded down to assault and battery in his sexual assault case, and not the first of his given all the charges across the US, I don't think this is the flex that he thinks it is, especially as his garbled Usain Bolt connection translates to the line that "I'm coming fast when I'm in there." Very telling. So yeah, okay, this is worse, but not nearly as bad as number 79, I Hate YoungBoy by YoungBoy Never Broke Again.
How you talking shit when the name die about your cousin? Gordo got no filter, he say that they gon' fuck with him.
I mentioned last week that YoungBoy Never Broke Again had responded to Lil Durk's Aha, and given that I was praying it wouldn't chart, I really don't want to have to rehash this increasingly stupid, pointless, and counterproductive beef, especially as YoungBoy's consistently been the aggressor to go to some increasingly vile places, especially in referencing the late King Von. So okay, this is his counterattack, where he goes to Lil Durk and all his affiliates, which include Apple Music and Gucci Mane, the latter of which is kind of ballsy, because Gucci Mane has been known as one not to cross under any circumstances if you want to live in Atlanta, even if I find him personally to be a mediocre rapper. But at this point, this might be one of YoungBoy's sloppiest cuts to date, where he seems very much aware that all of this is a bad idea from multiple people in his camp telling them and calling this out, and he just doesn't care who he hits. There's shots at Gucci Mane, and Lil Baby, and Lil Boosie, and a whole lot of women between them, and Lil Durk's father who just got out of jail, and YouTubers who comment or take sides. And not only does it feel flailing and desperate, there's not even good wordplay or punchy lines that really redeem it. And then when you have lines where it suggests that your baby moms don't want to have anything to do with you, and you've got no real friends, and the drug abuse has ravaged your consciousness as your flow deteriorates and your mixing gets considerably messier, it stops being intimidating. Starts looking a little pitiful. Now, the one point that might be worth examining is how YoungBoy points out Apple Music is boosting Lil Durk. But there's no play to call out the moral hypocrisy boosting Street Mayhem for profit, so much as just him complaining because since he's alienated his label and his streaming contacts, he doesn't get that same support. And as much as I could say that's what happens when you fuck around with those who have deeper pockets and connections, and Gucci's response was a warning shot in that direction, look, if I was Lil Durk or Lil Baby, or indeed anyone targeted here, I'd leave YoungBoy to just scream into the void. Don't sink to this level. You could ignore the trash. Number 76, I'm Tired by Labyrinth and Zendaya.
Hey Lord, just cut me loose.
Okay, look, I don't have enough time to get into my essays of thoughts on Euphoria. Seriously, if I had a couple solid weeks, I could churn out one hell of a video essay on that last season. But one thing I can speak on pretty quickly is the music, where I've been generally mixed to underwhelmed all damn season. I could put some of that up to Drake being an executive producer on the show, but truth be told, there's been a lot of opportunities for Labyrinth to really deliver standout work, and I'm sorry, I've just never been all that impressed. So even if they get Zendaya's vocals for the dramatic flip on the back half of this song, flipping some of the darker gospel clatter with the spare beat off the organ, highlighting Zendaya's character Rue succumbing to her demons, but then trying to find the will to keep on living, and you know what? Yeah, Zendaya can sell this in the outro. The mix uses negative space to emphasize the loneliness well. And let's be real, at least it's not that god-awful song that Dominic Fike's character provides in the season finale, but I think my issue here might be Labyrinth, who I've always thought has a good voice and texture and some presence, but there's something about this guy's delivery that's never quite connected for me. Just some missing level of charisma to really connect. Maybe it's just because I've been hearing him as a supporting producer and singer in a lot of electronic music for years now, but I also think Zendaya could have handled this on her own. I'm not sure we need him. Otherwise, yeah, it's fine, but I can't say I'm really all that gripped by it, and really that's only based off the context of the show. Without that, Not sure it would get there. That's all I'm saying. And finally, number 43, Freaky Deaky by Tyga and Doja Cat.
Freaky deaky, you're on your way to see me. Got the mirror on the ceiling. You're in the mood to please me.
Okay, you know it's a bad week when I'm praying for a Tyga and Doja Cat collab to actually be decent, and it would handily clinch the best of the week. And that's with the sort of Dr. Luke production credit that just has me thinking he slaps his name on anything coming out of Kemosabe, where I suspect he's barely touched this at all. And speaking of people that I don't want to touch this at all, Tyga's got 2 verses on this, and it's all over the post-chorus, so the sort of rote verses where you get hashtag rap like "Let me slide in it, Wayne Gretzky," or how he calls this girl gnarly, and then he references the last song he did with Doja Cat, Juicy. I mean, at this point, she's a considerably bigger star than him. I have no idea what he adds and why she couldn't have handled all this herself. Hell, she takes the hook off the slinky guitar lick and the snap beat, and her one verse here is actually pretty funny because she's got comedic timing down to a goddamn T. Also, I think she's a better rapper. It still doesn't have as much flair or personality as Doja Cat really could deliver. You could push Get Into It, yeah, anytime, push it more, that song's great. But I also know this is the sort of hook that will get stuck in your brain ridiculously well. And as corny as Tyga is here, for this sort of pop rap, he's not a deal breaker. Hell, I like Taste more than I think I should have. And Doja Cat is sweet enough on the hook to make this work. So yeah, easily Freaky Deaky, the best of this week. Not particularly close either. The worst, yeah, I hate YoungBoy, where I'd say the title sets up my punchline, but truth be told, I don't hate YoungBoy Never Broke Again. I'm just disappointed that I even lightly cared, and when he took it this far, I want the stupid feud to end without more bloodshed. Next week, I don't see Heat Waves getting another week on top, but we also have that YoungBoy DaBaby collab album potentially impacting the charts next week, so we're not nearly out of the woods yet. Stay tuned, but until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.